Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to tackle a little corner of English grammar that can honestly trip up just about anyone, making our descriptions bigger, better, and, well, just more. Let's jump right in and make some sense of it all.
You've been there, right? You're writing something, and you just pause. Is something older, or is it more old? Are you feeling happier or more happy? It's a super common question, and believe me, the answer is way simpler than you might think.
Okay, so first things first, the absolute core concept. Comparatives are for when you're comparing just two things. That's it. This house is older than my house. 1 versus 1. But the moment you have 3 or more things in the mix, you need a superlative. That's how you find the one that's at the very top, like Jan is the oldest of the 3 sisters. So remember, 2 things, comparative. 3 or more, superlative. That's our foundation.
So what's the secret? How do you know when to add versus when to use the word more? Well, the key that unlocks pretty much all of it is just counting the syllables in the adjective you're using. Yep, that's it. This one simple trick is going to be our guide for pretty much everything else we talk about today.
All right, let's put that counting trick into practice. We're going to start with the easiest ones, the words with just a single syllable. For these short words, the rules are nice and simple.
So, for most of these short, punchy one-syllable words, think old, clean, slow. It's incredibly straightforward. You just add for the comparative and est for the superlative. So old becomes older and then the oldest. This is your default rule for short adjectives.
But you know English, right? There's always a little spelling tweak to keep us on our toes. If your one-syllable word already ends in an E, like safe or nice, you don't need to add another one. You just add the R for safer or the est for safest. Easy. And here's the other big spelling change you've definitely seen. If a word ends in a single vowel followed by a single consonant, like big, you have to double that last consonant, so big becomes bigger. The reason for this is actually to protect the vowel sound. Without it, biger might sound like it rhymes with tiger, so that extra G keeps the vowel short.
Okay, we've got one-syllable words down, but what happens when things get a little longer? Well, 2-syllable adjectives introduce a fun little twist, especially when they end in the letter Y. So, the most common rule you'll see here is for words ending in Y, like happy or noisy. What you do is simple. You drop that Y, swap it out for an I, and then add your ER or EST ending. And that's how happy becomes happier and easy becomes the easiest.
Now this is one of those cool parts of English where you actually get a choice. There's a special group of 2-syllable adjectives, like simple or polite, that can actually go both ways. You can say simpler, or you can say more simple, more polite, or politer. Both are totally correct. You get to pick the one that sounds best to you.
We've handled one syllable. We've handled 2. Now what about the really long words? You know, the ones with 3 or more syllables? Well, believe it or not, this is actually the easiest rule of them all.
For any adjective that's got 3 or more syllables, we're talking words like dangerous, beautiful, difficult, you can just relax. You don't change the word at all. No suffixes, no spelling changes. You just put more in front of it for the comparative and the most for the superlative. More dangerous, the most beautiful. It's that simple.
And here's a super important exception that pretty much overrides the syllable count. If an adjective ends in ed or ing, words like tiring or bored, it always uses more and the most, no matter how many syllables it has. You would never say tiring-er, it's always more tiring. This is a big one to remember.
So, we have all these nice, logical rules based on counting syllables, right? It all seems to make sense. And then you have the rebels, a small but very common group of words that completely ignore the system and just do their own thing.
Yep, these are the rebels. There's no syllable rule, there's no trick, you just have to memorize them. Good doesn't become gooder, it becomes better and then the best. Bad jumps to worse and the worst. These are so fundamental to English that they're absolutely worth committing to memory.
Okay, so we know how to form all these different words now. Let's take a look at how they actually work in a sentence to make our comparisons powerful and clear.
Now this might seem a little basic, but it's crucial. When you're making that direct comparison between two things, the little word that connects them is than. Their house is cleaner than ours. This movie is more interesting than the last one. It's the simple but essential glue for your comparison.
Now here is a really cool and kind of elegant structure for showing cause and effect. When you use the with two comparatives, you can show how one thing directly impacts another. Like, the faster you drive, the more dangerous it is. Or, the higher they climbed, the colder it got. It's a really powerful way to link two changing ideas together.
All right, let's boil this all down. What are the absolute key things to remember? First, comparatives are for two things, superlatives are for three or more. Second, your main guide is always the number of syllables. Short words get ER and EST, long words get more and the most. And finally, know your rebels. Just memorize words like good, bad, and far.
And that's a wrap. I really hope this was one of the most useful explainers you've seen on the topic. So, thinking back on everything we covered, what's the single best thing you learned today? Thanks for joining in.